All right. Hi, everyone. Those who are watching via Facebook and those who are watching on YouTube, welcome to today's session. My name is Reon van der Merwe. I am the Deputy Secretary General for the International Association for Political Science Students. Today is another segment in our session where we are meeting the different regional chairs of the International Association. And today we are here with Rutaba Tariq, who is the chair of the Asia region. Rutaba, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks so much for joining us and for being part of this session.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Great. I think, so for those who are not familiar with this series, this is just for us to get to know our regional chairs as an association, to get to know some of the work that they're doing, but also on a more personal level, their own commitments to political science and advancing the mandate of students in the field. So, Rutaba, I think I'm going to start off just by asking you a broad question to tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit specifically also how you got into political sciences and what brings you to this field.
Yeah, so thank you for doing this, first of all. And then about my background, I'm working as the regional chair for IAPSS, but besides that, I'm working as the account executive for youth communication. But other than that, I'm really an advocate for youth inclusion and policy making within countries and within regions. And for that, I've been working with OIC's official youth forum. For people who may not be aware, OIC is the second largest intergovernmental organization right after UN. So I've been associated with them. I've been part of Pakistan's youth parliament. So there are a lot of experiences in the past where I've just engaged with platforms where I got to meet fellow young leaders and learn from them and contribute in policy making, at a general level. So that's a bit of my background. But academically speaking, I'm not a political science student, but I am a student of international relations. So I have my degree in international relations with a focus on peace studies in the Middle East. So that's that. And why I went into international relations is a different, topic altogether. Of course, anyone who's familiar with political science knows that I and political science are, conjoined twins. You can't separate the two. For me, international relations, it appealed to me primarily because of where I am. I'm stationed in Pakistan, and even growing up, I felt like the world was always at our doorstep. And it's a weird way to put it, but the fact was that I was growing up in a country which was always going back and forth between dictatorship and democracy. And I always heard statements coming from the United States and elsewhere in the world. They were, passing statements about Pakistan's politics. And I kept wondering, what is the connection between the United States talking about Pakistan? And I was really curious about those things. And I was curious as to what was happening in Pakistan in terms of security, in terms of our development. Everything was linked to what was happening in the region as well. And what was happening in the region was that a lot of superpowers are involved. So I was fascinated by the idea, always slightly scared, but also fascinated by the idea that there was this country out there, very far away from us, with the United States, Russia, and what they had going on had direct implications in a world that I was living in, and direct implications of the family and my friends and the members of the community. So I think that is what got me interested. And I felt like if I needed to understand the world and how I can contribute to the community and society, I needed to have a good understanding of what was happening in the world. Because without having that understanding, I think I may not be able to make the difference that I envision myself making. Again, that was a very ambitious idea from a very young self of mine. I know that things are very different in the real world, but initially that is what got me interested in international relations, and that's how I got into the subject.
Right, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure many of us can relate to the feeling of ambitious. I think everybody in the political sciences, social sciences, international relations, we were all those young kids who, when people asked us what we wanted to do, we said, we want to change the world. Yeah. But, yeah, we still want to, but now we have data and journal articles to back it up. Yeah. So just to follow up on that, your involvement in IAPSS, you've obviously been, this is actually your second mandate as IAPSS Asia chair, so congratulations for that. And then I would also just like you to maybe expand a bit on your road into IAPSS, how you became involved, and how you reached the position of actually becoming the chair.
Right, that's a great question because it tells us a lot about IAPSS itself. So I came across IAPSS as an accident entirely. It was my friend, and because I run an organization in Pakistan that focuses on youth skill building and skill development, we're always on a hunt of organizations that are similar to ours so that we can learn from them, partner with them, so on and so forth. And my friend came across IAPSS and he just shared the website link with me saying, "Do you know IAPSS?" And I'm like, "What is IAPSS?" He said it's an association for political science students. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. And once I landed on the website as well, and I started reading about the history of IAPSS and the kind of programs they do, I thought I immediately fell in love with something. I didn't really think of something like this. I mean, I didn't think something of this nature could have even existed or existed out there, which is a global platform where students of political science and affiliated subjects were they bonded together, came together, hosted these events, curated these events, but at the same time helped develop academic capacities of each other. I thought that was brilliant. That this creating this safe space where we could talk to each other and share our expertise, irrespective of where we were located. I thought that was brilliant, and I thought I'm going to try my luck. Initially, I didn't think I was going to make the cut. I'd be very honest. I thought, I'm from Pakistan. I'm from a state university, and all the people that I'm looking at IAPSS website are brilliant individuals from all of these amazing universities. And I kept thinking, how am I going to get into this organization, because it feels like it's going to be very competitive and everything. But then I was like, I have to at least try. And there was an open call. If anyone ever wants to join IAPSS, all they have to do is go on the website, and then there's a link about joining us, and there'll be all sorts of posting, and you can have a ball just looking at the kind of openings we have. And I just I applied for the projects coordinator position, and I did see the IAPSS chairs position being open, but I thought that was going to be too much for me. I wouldn't be able to handle it. So I just applied. And lo and behold, something might have clicked with whoever was handling my application, and they called me in for an interview. I think my first interaction was just amazing. I got to understand that IF was far more diverse than what I saw on the website. When I saw the website, I thought, maybe it's just stationed in Europe perhaps, and they're still working on developing more presence in outside of Europe. But when I started talking, I realized that was not the case. There are all these regions that they're working on. They're represented from Latin America, Asia, Europe, Canada, USA. And it started to dawn on me that this was bigger than what even the website was telling me. So I jumped in with both my hands, and I thought, it's great. So that's how I got into IAPSS. And that was a huge long rant, but it's very nostalgic for me, very honestly, just kind of sort of recollecting how I got into IAPSS. And once I did, I was just motivated to get things together, because within IAPSS Asia, it was still a very new team. It was still in its nascent stages. But I got to meet people from India, Afghanistan, Mongolia, Uzbekistan, Japan. And if any one of you are aware of the Asian landscape, you would know that we're a very disintegrated region, right? So we don't really get these many opportunities talking to each other, let alone working with each other. And they're two different things. Engaging with people on social media, we're just talking to people for a little while, but working with them just brings out a whole another world. So I got the opportunity to work with these different people from this nationality who for all intent and purposes shared similar cultures and similar emotions towards the political landscape in Asia. And I thought that in itself was a huge, it was amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I know that many of us, our journeys into IAPSS can be very nostalgic for us, because it's something that many of the leadership are quite passionate about. So you do dedicate a lot of time and effort. So thank you for sharing that with us. So I think my next question, and I think it feeds off of the point that you made with regards to the similar sentiments that the people in your region have towards politics, the youth. What would you say is why is the field of political science, and that I use it as in its broadest sense to include everything, including international relations, but you can maybe speak on that specifically. Why do you think that field is so relevant for youth in Asia? Why would you encourage youth in your region to actually consider that as a legitimate career field?
Yeah, so I mean, I want to put up a disclaimer before talking about Asia. Asia is huge, just by the way. So when I say Asia, I really I'm trying to put in together all these different cultures, these political realities that are not as homogeneous as people would like to believe. You know, we are a melting pot of both crisis, opportunities, cultures, people, languages, and it's very difficult to talk about Asia in just one. But so whatever you're hearing out of me, please just take it with a pinch of salt, because I'm just explaining these things from where I've sit in Pakistan and from my own experience. For me, political science has always been important. Even international relations has always been important because I think we need more ownership of our own society. And social sciences in general is about understanding the society around you. For the longest time, I felt like, even when I was a student of international relations, I would read up theories written by Western authors and Western scholars, and that's quite okay. We should share in that scholarly work wherever it's being developed. But then what we build on as political science students or international relations students should be our own understanding and our own comprehension of the society we're in. And that's a very important contribution that we have to make within our society, because of the interpretations that we make, all the analysis that we draw, all the solutions that we drawing from our realities that nobody else in the world will know better than us. So at the very heart of it, I think people should pursue social sciences, political science, international relations for the sake of understanding their society and contributing to it, and making sure that they have a voice within the, within a very interconnected world, which can get very noisy very quickly. I think that's important. Number two, within political science, again, I've seen politics in maybe South Asian nations, maybe other nations within Asia as well, as a very elitist profession. What I mean by that is we have a certain class that we've had growing up seeing be part of political fabric. So there's this kind of distance that we feel with politics growing up as middle class children in Asia, because we don't think that we have what it takes to be a politician, right? Or be a political analyst, because we are not as educated, we don't have the kind of resources behind us. I think studying a subject up close gives you the understanding that things, it does help you understand the reality of things much better, but it keeps you much better to be able to take on these challenges. Even if you're living in a society that is a very difficult hierarchy where climbing up the social ladder is much difficult, just the knowledge of understanding that society will equip you much better to be able to perform in that, hierarchically restrictive society. For me, I think the only way you can actually overcome these barriers would be through knowledge, and that you would only know when you acquired the right kind of knowledge, and that would come from social sciences. It's absolutely unfortunate, and I still see this happening. A lot of richer class people who go into the political sphere, the development sector, and they're part of the managerial element or the decision-making element within these institutions. But at the same time, I see a lot of, I don't know how controversial, but I see a lot of engineers going into politics. I see a lot of doctors going into politics in Pakistan, for instance, right? And I always wonder why that is. Why am I not hearing that my finance minister has a background in, I don't know, an economics degree or something like that? So, there's a deficit. That's a deficit. If you don't have people who understand what they're doing, then you will come up with policies that are, weak, that will not deliver the kind of change that we want our leaders to deliver. So for me, political science brings everything together. And to sum this long rant, I would just say politics is everywhere. You can't just say that, I'm least bothered about politics. You can say that. That's your opinion. But is that a reflection of what goes on in the world? No, because politics is everywhere. Whether you're a student, whether you keep away from politics, it doesn't matter. Politics will be part of your life and your fabric, irrespective. So I think just that reality in itself should be very important for people to pursue. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think that's very insightful, and it reminds us, in the interview we did a few days ago with the chair from Europe, there was a completely different answer to that. And I think that reminds us of the diversity of the regions and why it's so important to approach the field of political science in a regional way. Because even within the region, as you mentioned, it's still disaggregated, so it's still very diverse. So even the regional lens is in some sense not sufficient, but it's definitely better than just a broad brushstroke. I think just before I go on with my next question, I want to throw it over to Paula, who's helping us with the technical element. If there's any questions on the Facebook, on the social media yet. All right, Paula has told me that there's not just comments, so I hope they're all positive comments. All right, great. So I think my next question, I think I'll move towards a close with this one. Obviously, there's a lot that you can do as a chair of an IAPSS region, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that you're planning to do. But in a broader sense, not necessarily just a project, but just in a broader sense, if there's one thing that you could achieve at the end of your current mandate and say, we've done this, what would it be?
Oh, I mean, there's scope to do so much within IAPSS and IAPSS Asia as well. So my answer is going to be twofold, actually, not just one thing, but twofold. Because as a chair, I'm also looking at things internally at IAPSS Asia, but also externally. So internally, I would really like that IAPSS Asia has, and this is linked to the one that I'm going to say next, is that I want more membership flowing into IAPSS Asia, more political science students, international relations students coming up and signing as members for IAPSS, right? Because we need that kind of representation at IAPSS, but more importantly, we need that kind of accountability at IAPSS, very honestly. We're a very small community of Asian students in IAPSS. And the way we'll grow is by ensuring that we have as many people on board within IAPSS, and by making sure that we have as diverse as possible a cohort of Asian members in IAPSS in general. So for me, I need more membership. And then at the end of the day, I need a running team. For example, if I have more members, then I know that there'll be people who will compete for my position. And that will be, I mean, if at the end of the mandate, I know that I'm being competed for, my position is going to be competed for, and then I'm going to be having a tough time retaining my position. I think that would be the pinnacle of my journey at IAPSS in general, because I feel like, I've done my job, that IAPSS now has Asian members who are vying and competing and ready to play the field and make sure that they make the most out of what IAPSS has to offer. And there's a lot that IAPSS has to offer for Asian students. So yeah, that would be the one thing that I would really like to see happen.
Right, thank you for that. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, obviously the leadership of IAPSS, so the entire global executive, the entire corp of regional chairs are all elected at the annual General Assembly. So of course, that's what Rutaba is referring to. So the more members there are, the more engaging the democracy is. And in the end, I think it speaks to IAPSS's desire to be a democratic association, because in the end, it belongs to every member who signs up. So there are no sort of special appointments or things like that, because as political science students, we know how dubious that gets. All right, so I think in closing, and we can move out with this, are there any specific projects? I know obviously projects take quite a bit of time to plan and so forth, so I'm not expecting any details, any dates, but are there any interesting projects that students in your region can sort of be on the lookout for, that you're planning with your team to develop in future?
Yeah, so there's one that we're hoping to do. We're basically hoping to do a panel discussion on the current Afghanistan crisis, what's happening there. We have actually a representative from Afghanistan who's a member of IAPSS Asia's team. And again, this sort of thing only comes up when you're working in teams like IAPSS Asia, which is when I had a discussion with him about the Afghanistan crisis, and I just had an idea. I said, I don't really hear a lot of Afghan voices on international media talking about what's going on. We hear all of these analysts far away from Afghanistan talking about what's happening. So maybe we need to put up a panel of people stationed in Afghanistan to talk about what's happening. And so we're very eager to do that panel discussion. So that's something that might be of interest to a lot of people who are following IAPSS. But other than that, IAPSS Asia has always been about the partnerships and engaging with other organizations. So we have a lot of partnerships in pipeline. So if you are part of an organization that works on similar lines that IAPSS does, feel free to just drop in a line and we'll work on different projects. So yeah, I can't say too much about that because they're still in the ideation phase, but the Afghanistan event is definitely something that we're hoping to do and get done. And I think that might be of interest to students who are interested in contemporary politics and international relations.
All right, thank you for that. I think we will be on the lookout for that. Anybody who's interested in that, obviously IAPSS has its own Facebook page, a Twitter page, we're on LinkedIn, and then IAPSS Asia itself has its own Facebook page that you can also follow. So I'd encourage everyone to be on the lookout for that very relevant and pertinent event. All right, I think we're going to close it there. Thank you so much for your time today, Rutaba. Thank you so much for your the inputs that you've given. I hope that the members have had an opportunity, and everyone who watches this has an opportunity to get to know you and engage with the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you both to you, Reon, and people who cannot see Paola, who's in the back end. Thank you for arranging this. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. All right.